The Hangout on air is live right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Source Material. I have started a live stream on YouTube according to Twitter, and it's good because I meant to do that. Tonight, Source Material on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network is bringing to you. This is going to be a fun topic, fun discussion, fun. We're all going to be respectful of each other's beliefs and commentary here. We're not going to intentionally say anything to upset anybody or insult anyone. Well, when I say
I'm on the wrong I'm on the wrong show.
Says you.
I don't know what hippie loving you put me on, but that's not why I came here.
Yeah. No, okay. All right. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman that I have on the podcast here tonight, Mark Radulich. How you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm starting to recover from the plague.
You sound a lot better than you did about a week ago. That's for sure.
It's funny. I just listened to the Metal Hammer of Doom year-end show where my voice was dying before the rest of my body, and I was like, I really do. My father. I've said this before about my father saying that Johnny Cash didn't sound like he was going to finish Bridge Over Troubled Water before dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I sound like that on the podcast. I sound like I'm not going to make it to the end of the podcast.
Yeah, dude, you powered through that thing because I remember sitting there going, "It won't be long. He's not going to. It's going to be over with. We got like 5 more songs to go. I don't know what's going on." But
it won't be long until Mark is dead on air.
Me and Coop got to pick it up. So
no, I will. If I die, I will come back and write a new schedule.
In memoriam, Mark Radulich.
Now,
in 2018, make sure that you do this on this date. Yeah. Oh, okay. Mark Radulich from Beyond the Grave. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I was going to say, I enjoyed listening to it, and it's really inspired me to be more organized. But you all picked right before the show to do a year of a schedule, Mark. A whole year. And I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs going, yeah.
Anybody that walks in a room and expects to leave the room with Mark Radulich in there 5 minutes later, when he looks at you and says, "Well, while I got you here, be ready."
Yeah.
Mark, we love you, man. Thank you very much for taking the time and actually scheduling all that out.
Absolutely.
That does take a lot of the burden off of my shoulders. So that way I know what content to go for.
You spoiled him, sir.
I'm happy to plan someone's life out for them because my wife won't let me do it to her.
Understandable.
I try to plan out like vacations and places to go and movies to see and all these things to do with her. And she's like, I got to get to the end of, I'm still at work. Leave me alone.
It's just 1 more hour, please. That's all I have. Ronnie Adams, buddy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Hey, you know what? I wanted to get this in here before we get started. Welcome to the Source Material shoe.
Hey, you dick.
Anyway, forcing that joke in there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Tonight, we are discussing. Let's just talk about the genesis of how this came about. Yeah, Ronnie's getting his Uggs, ahs, and sighs in.
No, I'm just getting comfortable.
You were going to be hearing that a lot tonight. This topic tonight that we're going to be talking about caught fire a couple months back. I'm a big fan of the iFanboy podcast. I listen to that, one of the more popular comic book podcasts that's out there. One of the comics that they kept bringing up as pick of the week was Flintstones. And for the life of me, I was like, what in the world are these guys talking about? What is the big deal? And, as they kind of pitched it a little bit, they don't cover it like we do in depth. They just kind of give a brief, hey, this is what's going on in this book and why you should read it. As they were talking about it, I noticed that a lot of the subject matter that was being approached in a DC Comics Flintstones book was something that I never would have expected to happen in the first place. So finally, I kind of bit the bullet and I was like, okay, well, I want to check one of these issues out. And I happened to check out issue, I think I just read issue 4, like right off the cuff. And we're going to get to the particulars of that issue. But immediately after reading it, I said, okay, I think I reached out to Ronnie first. Mm-hmm. I said, dude, I said, have you heard anything about the Flintstones? And of course, I don't think you had heard anything about it.
No.
And I said, well, hey, check these out. I'll get the opportunity, give them a good read. And then I went to Mark Radulich. Mark Radulich has been on this program many times. And I just want to say my impression, Mark, is that you definitely enjoy reading the superhero stuff. But I've never had the opportunity to sit down and talk to you about much of an independent book or a book that kind of falls outside of the superhero genre. We haven't done anything like that, have we, before?
No, the last time I read anything independent was when I was actively reading comic books in high school, and I was reading the Dark Horse stuff. And I mostly stuck with the Aliens and Predator
titles.
Books. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually picked up over the Christmas holiday the DC Comics Dark Horse shared title of Aliens. It's got the various it's a collection of the various crossovers between Aliens and the DC superheroes, Batman and Superman.
Dude, does it have Alien? No, wait, I'm sorry. That's Aliens. Okay, that's fine. I haven't read any of those. If it has Predator versus JLA, I was going to offer my condolences for having to read through that piece of crap. That you can stay. That is actually, I covered that here on the show.
One of the first shows I listened to.
Oh my gosh. And
maybe
Stephen Marsh's favorite. I ended up getting that thing for almost pennies on the dollar there for at an auction, and it was worth every penny I spent. Which was probably about two pennies. I would pay 2 pennies to read it once. Okay. So we hadn't had a chance to talk about, like Flintstones or, me coming to Mark saying, hey, read a Scooby-Doo comic book. I didn't know what his reaction would be. So
it depends. If you told me to read a My Little Pony and there happened to be a movie coming out and my daughter was, never mind, just go ahead.
So I said, Mark, you got to read issue 4. And he's like, okay, well, I want to read 1 through 4. I said, well, dude, you don't have to. And then this was just a suggestion. I just wanted to get his opinion. I didn't want to do a show about it. That wasn't my intention at first. So I said, I just want to get your opinion. I want you to read this and throw it back at me, because I didn't know if he'd ever seen anything like this in a comic book before. I just picture Mark sitting there with all his superhero books all around him and not kind of venturing out into the world. I know that's probably not the case, but I decided to make him do so. And so when he came back with me, he's like, look, I want to read issues 1 through 4 and we need to discuss it. And I said, okay, well, I have no problem with that. We'll do that on the show. And he says, we're going to do it the first show of 2017. I said, all right, then we will go ahead and do that. No problem. So tonight is the result of all of that right there. It went from iFanboy to my ears to Ronnie's ears to Mark's ears. And Ronnie, by the way, I call him an unwilling participant in this, because if he could, he would probably be clipping his toenails, washing his hair right now.
Let me tell you how it came to be that Ronnie read these.
Okay. Please.
Ronnie was sitting at his chair one night. All of a sudden, he gets a Facebook message from Jesse saying, hey, have you read the Flintstones? And I said, no, I didn't realize there was a new Flintstones comic out. He said, well, you need to read these. You need to check them out. I said, okay. So I read issues 1 through 4.
I know where this is going.
And I came back to him and I gave him my particular opinion, which you'll hear later. And I said, this, I read them all. Here's my opinion. What did you think of them? Holy crap, you read them all? I haven't even read the first one yet. So you had me read all of them.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Without even reading really one of them.
From iFanboy's mouth to my ears, by golly, Ronnie Adams. And I said, it's got to be, just from how they were describing it, was that amazing. I was like, you guys have got to read these things and tell me what you think. And I
told you what I thought.
Maybe I get to it later. But, okay. So that's going to be our discussion tonight. We're going to be talking about the first 4 issues. Stephen Marsh is chiming in. He is listening. He was planned to be on this podcast tonight. We want to wish him and his wife a very, a lot of good luck. I know they're right now at the hospital waiting for baby Cooper to possibly be arriving sometime soon. Hopefully he'll stay there as long as you can, man. So then don't come out until you need to be. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for listening, Stephen.
Oh.
All right.
Is it too early to wish him Mazel Tov?
It's like we want the baby to stay just for a couple more weeks, but I don't think it's early to.
Oh, they're that early. Well, good luck to you guys.
Yes. Just keep the baby in there for a little bit, and then Mazel Tov all you want. I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I use that word right. I hear people use
it on.
Does that mean like party? What does that mean?
No, it means congratulations.
Thank you. Hey,
it's Yiddish.
Is it Yiddish?
I don't know. I made that up.
I mean, I think it's actual Hebrew, but whatever.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying
I'm here to learn.
I didn't say it was a mitzvah. I just said Mazel Tov. I'm very excited, but I didn't realize that they were early, so I feel bad now. Oh. Anyway, I wish your family nothing but the best.
There you go. There you go. All right. So that awkwardness aside, let's go ahead.
Well, it wasn't awkward till you just said it was.
No, it was pretty awkward for me. Go on.
No.
Let's go ahead and we're going to talk the first 4 issues of the Flintstones. Now, the way I've got it, I put a lot of the load and the burden on Mark tonight, as he's got 2 talking points that he's going to bring up. I think he has issues 2 and 4.
You didn't give me the one I wanted.
Oh, you're more than welcome to chime in with whatever you want to say.
You can have them all.
That does not surprise me coming out of
your empire of dirt.
So, yeah, I'll take the first one. I'm going to do a recap on every single one of them and let you guys fly with a discussion point, and then we'll give our final thoughts. So let's just first off, round table. All right, Flintstones. Let's talk about the property first. Flintstones, by the way, hey, there's my Wikipedia. Okay. Flintstones broadcast from September 30th, 1960 to April 1st, 1966 on ABC. Now, anybody out there, them young whippersnappers that don't know what a Flintstone is, the Flintstones was an animated TV show. It was a comedy and it came out on prime time, which was kind of a big deal.
Animated. That's cute.
It's a cartoon. I mean, that's yeah, it was definitely a cartoon.
Well, most of the characters were animated. The backgrounds, maybe not so much.
I'm just saying. I mean, when look, you're talking to a 2017 audience, Jesse Starcher, and to them, animated means something much different than what animated was way back in the prehistoric times of the 1960s.
Yeah.
Basically a lot of matte paintings and the crude drawings, a limb would move here or there.
Maybe
it was it was very much like, it wasn't the high point of animation from Walt Disney Studios, giving you Snow White. This was a guy being a newspaper cartoon in front of a camera.
It was well, let's go ahead, Mark. Well, actually, all 3 of us here are pretty much around the same age. Mark, do you remember watching this show, which clearly was reruns at the time,
I was not born in the 60s.
You were not born in the 60s. What do you remember here about the Flintstones?
I used to watch the Flintstones all the time. I mean, you got to remember the Flintstones were part of the Hanna-Barbera lineup, and Hanna-Barbera had a lot of different outlets to put out their cartoons. There was of course the Laugh Olympics, if you'll remember.
Oh yeah.
There was what was the car one, the one that South Park made fun of, the Wacky Races.
Wacky Race, yeah.
Yeah, there was Wacky Races, and of course there were the Jetsons. You had the Flintstones. You had Yogi Bear and his pal Boo Boo. You had Hong Kong Phooey. Am I right about that?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Hanna-Barbera too, right? You had Huckleberry Hound. There were all these different characters. A lot of them had their own show. El Kabong. That's right.
Wow.
Good old Jeff Jarrett.
Cartoon Network brought these guys back, like in the early 2000s, I think, or maybe it was the late 90s. Because the El Kabong stuff, I remember specifically seeing commercials between. Oh, shoot, I don't know. It was on, I'm fairly certain it was on the Cartoon Network. It was in between, like Courage the Cowardly Dog. I remember watching a lot of those when Kira was little and catching those commercials. But anyway, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, I absolutely watched a lot of Flintstones. I mean, I don't remember it being like my favorite or anything. Excuse me. I don't remember it like Flintstones was must-see viewing. But you have to remember, now, I want people to try to imagine a world without remote controls, where you have
dials. Don't you say dials and antennas or something like that? That's crazy.
Rabbit ears. Okay, I want you to picture a time before digital cable, analog cable, and you had a cable box that was this plastic thing that was made to look like wood for some odd reason, and it was made to look like wood via a sticker that was made to look like wood. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
And it had like 3 levels, and you had to click on each level in order to change channels. I must be blowing some kid's mind right now. They're like, I don't even understand what you're saying. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that if you were sitting down on the floor or on the couch or on your mom's bed watching TV and the Flintstones came on, you might just have to watch the Flintstones or actually get up.
It's true.
And if one thing hasn't changed since the 1980s,
Flintstones is staying on that TV.
you're goddamn right. So I watched a lot of Flintstones just because it was on, basically. But I'll tell you, as we talk about this and as I think back to memories of watching TV as a kid, I actually remember like a lot of that humor, a lot of those jokes, and a lot of the music in the background. I don't know if anyone knows this, but I do a metal podcast nights on the Rattledge and Broadcast Network and Broadcasting Network. I should know the name of my own network. For over 10 years, grinding your gears.
Just not remembering the name right.
Here on the Jeff Broadcast Network. Anyway.
Whoops, I made a mistake again. It's not the Jeff Network. Damn.
Anyway, but I've always been inclined to sort of pay attention to music, and with the Flintstones, it was always sort of that slide whistle, Yep. Or chimes or something. There was always some light music always in the background of the Flintstones that to this day I still remember, especially if there was a joke being made. If it was like it was a dumb, sort of granddad type of joke, usually at the expense of one of the appliance animals. You always have that wah 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 wah, and
like if the can opener said something.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a living, huh?
Wah, wah.
Yeah. Wah, 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 wah. And then they would fade out. I remember that distinctly.
Oh man. Ronnie Adams, how about you, dude? What Flintstones, man?
I was a big Hanna-Barbera fan back in the day. I'd watch the Flintstones. I'd watch Super Friends, Johnny Quest, all that stuff from back in the day. The Herculoids.
Oh, I love the Herculoids.
Yeah,
with that little yellow blob snot monster.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. So
I can't wait to edit this thing and put all your guys' sound effects together right at the end.
Hang on. Wait, come here. Hang on 1 second. My wife has no idea what we're talking about, right? There's no idea what the fucking Herculoids are. All she knows is I turned away from my computer, looked at her, went. And
brilliant!
I'm gonna give her the mic for 1 second. What did you say?
Is there a fatwa going on in here?
Wow.
We're going to war? I don't understand.
Oh my gosh.
I just like the fact that my wife thinks we're all Al Qaeda now. It's an innocent. Hang on, now you guys keep talking. I'm going to bring up the Herculoids for her.
Yes, Ronnie Adams, Herculoids.
Well, naturally, Flintstones always came on with all that stuff too, and so I like the Flintstones. I'm right there with Mark. The cheesy humor, the bad jokes, all that is just something that was part of your childhood. So I enjoyed the Flintstones. There were some episodes I liked better. As it went along, it kind of, you hate to say that the Flintstones jumped the shark, but they kind of did. And the old episodes were always better than the newer ones. But you were right. I mean, it was just like somebody shaking a newspaper in front of a camera, and but that's what gave it its simple beauty. It was all about the writing too.
Yeah. I mean, it spawned a lot of spinoffs. You were talking about a lot of the newer episodes. I can remember watching a good bit of those, like when I think the kids grew up a little bit and became teenagers. But yeah, as for myself, for some reason, I'm thinking it was part of some kind of weird lineup on TBS, like between 5 and 6 or something.
Probably.
I could be absolutely wrong. I mean, this thing was syndicated all over the place. I don't recall it ever watching the original 60s Flintstones anywhere else other than on TBS in a rerun format. So that sticks out in my mind, and I could be wrong, but I remember watching it and enjoying it. And dude, do you remember the crossover? Didn't they had a crossover that came out on video, direct to video, and I still haven't watched it, but I remember going to the video store and going, I've got to get a hold of that. And it was the Flintstones crossing over with the Jetsons.
Oh, I thought you meant the Flintstones crossing over with WWE.
We watched that.
I don't recall that. That happened?
Yeah.
Oh no! Wait a minute. Wait, you didn't know that the WWE did a whole thing with the Flintstones?
No, I saw the Scooby-Doo one.
John Cena Rock.
No.
Vince McMahon Rock.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
The Rock.
No,
no, I don't know if that really
happened. Yeah, we rented that for my son.
I had no idea.
John Rock.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the whole thing was basically like Fred becomes like a shitty independent wrestling booker, promoter, and eventually like it just gets out of hand and he loses all this money, and then Vince McMahon I think steals the idea from him.
Oh geez.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, that's something I'll have to check out there because I had no idea that even existed. That is crazy. Well, okay, so we kind of went around the table, talked about our experience with the Flintstones, property from the 60s. It's I saw on the wiki there, it says it became, or it still is the number 2. I don't know if it still is, but I would assume that hasn't changed. The number 2 cartoon just behind The Simpsons. So very, very interesting piece of trivia there.
You would really have to not be alive very long or not have any knowledge of American culture to not know what the Flintstones are. They are an embedded part of this culture.
I was going to say that it really set a precedent, specifically being a show, a primetime, cartoon. The only way, I want to say the only way it would survive primetime, but really, I don't think it was as cutthroat as things definitely are 50 years later. Wow, we're talking 51 years since it went off the air. That's crazy. But, I mean, for a cartoon to be on prime time, I just didn't think that would be something you would normally see. The Simpsons is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of primetime cartoons.
Well, you also got to remember that the long tail of media has changed sharply. Do you have any idea what the fuck I'm talking about before I go? This goes any further. Do you have any idea what I mean when I say the long tail?
The long tail. If you're referencing something, I don't know what it is. I'm picturing I picture a tail, and it's the only thing I can picture. It's a book.
Yes, Jesse. It's a book.
Okay.
It's called The Long Tail is a book, and without getting too specific or into the minutia, it basically example of what they mean by like a long tail. So there were 3 networks 100 years ago, right?
ABC. I think of ABC, NBC, CBS, right?
Okay, right. So if you think about just the continental United States, there were 3 channels that they could watch. Most of the world, most of the culture was in tune to these 3 channels. If you wanted to reach people, that was how you did it. The course of the amount of people you could reach through certain venues changes over time the more channels you add. So now if you're just talking about television, let's leave the internet out of this because this is going to get too complicated. But if you think about the amount of channels that are now available through, let's say, digital cable subscription, so let's say Time Warner, right, being a prime example of one, and let's just take the primary channels. Let's not get into HD mirrors, okay? So there's 500 at a minimum?
Sure.
Before you start getting into the mirror, that's 500 channels versus 3. So if you think about it in terms of a gradient, in terms of a graph, right, you have most amount of people sort of shoehorned into these 3 channels. You know, people, because the population really hasn't changed, but now you're spread it over 500 channels as opposed to 3. That's the long tail.
Okay. So you're potentially, would you say potentially diluting your audience by doing that?
Okay. Right. If you think about the amount of people that watch a particular channel now versus the amount of potential amount of people that could have been watching 50 years ago, are gotten smaller.
Okay. All right.
So
gotcha.
basically, it's kind of a supply and demand kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, they only had so much to give, so they only gave that much. So you only had a few. My mom talks about when there was 3 channels on the TV. She hated Saturday nights because my grandfather would always watch boxing. Then she got to like it because that was the only thing that was on.
I see.
So when she was a little girl, she would watch boxing. And then as it went along, they found out, more channels means more programming, more things to watch, more choices. So they stopped airing certain things because it didn't, nobody really cared about it anymore. So they kind of went to more, just more. I want more. So people who would watch those 3 stations would veer off and watch other things.
So here's what is the long tail of marketing? The theory of the long tail is that our culture and economy is increasingly shifting away from a focus on a relatively small number of hits, mainstream products and markets at the head of the demand curve, and toward a huge number of niches in the tail.
I see.
Okay.
All right. I got you. So hence Flintstones, bring it back to Flintstones for me.
That the Flintstones was, its popularity and its accessibility was at the high end, the tail.
I got you.
Yeah, now and while it's still out there in the culture, I mean, really, if you put if you put Flintstones on right now as a brand new product that no one had ever heard of before, how popular do you think it would be?
Yeah.
Same, same content, or at least the same idea. I mean, let's take a modern day example of the Flintstones. Let's take the Family Guy. The Family Guy certainly has an audience, but it's got a lot of competition just in that time slot alone, just on television.
Yeah.
So,
I got you. All right. Very good explanation. I hope that graphic that I pulled up, it looks like it somewhat pertains to what you're saying.
Yes, that is the long tail of media.
There it is. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead. We'll get into the issues now that we have a good understanding of. Well, no, wait a second. Let me backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about our writer here. Okay. Mark Russell, I believe is his name. Let me pull up my notes. I'm going to need those. Mark Russell. First time I've ever heard of this guy was this year. Just like I said on the other podcast, listening to that, they brought this guy's name up. However, I had heard them talking about another book that he had done last year, and they said it was somewhat interesting to read. A book by the name of Prez, and I think it was also done by DC. Prez is a I don't know if either of you saw the concept of what Prez was, but Prez was about this kid, like 17-year-old kid, I think, that got put into the presidency because one of her videos had gone viral. It takes place into the future, so I guess apparently you can vote by Twitter, and people. This video she put on there went viral, got so popular, they actually voted her into president. That's the concept behind Prez.
Yeah, we're not far off from that.
Take that for what you will. And he's done a couple other things. I think Apocrypha Now was a book that he had written about the books that were not put into the Bible. He also had a book called God is Disappointed in You. So we could tell right off the bat, we're getting into, this is a writer that has had his hand in, I'll just say taking shots at, and I wouldn't say organized religion, but things that are somewhat held sacred by other people. So he has no problems doing that. And so DC's like, hey, let's give this guy, he did such a good job with Prez. A lot of people were impressed with what he'd done. They had said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and give him the reins to the Flintstones. Now, this is all over YouTube. If you guys go check out the interviews that Mark Russell has done, I had actually heard them talk about this on iFanboy as well when they interviewed him. DC comes to him and says, hey, are you interested in doing the Flintstones? And he says, well, I'm not too up on the whole Flintstones thing. He says he remembers watching it when he was a kid, but he certainly does not remember it being something that he enjoyed. And so he didn't know if he could do well on the subject matter or even do something that DC, he didn't think he was the man for the job. But Dan DiDio, which is the guy who gave him a call, says, well, look, you're perfect because you're going to have free reign. We're going to give you some guideposts, some things you can do, some things that just kind of guide your way into the continuity and things like that. But the rest is all open. It's up for grabs. That way, since you're not too bound by the knowledge of what's come before in the Flintstones, then you're the perfect man for the job. So DC was like really taking a risk, letting this guy take a property over. First off, Flintstones is I think that's a pretty big property to give somebody the reins to and say, go for it. Because we just talked about how popular this show was, still kind of is. But, can you say, hey, here you go, here's all these characters, go for it? I don't know if I would want to do that. That's really taking a risk, in my opinion. So we get the Flintstones. All right. And so Mark Russell's got his chance with the Flintstones here. And that's what we're going to talk about here and just see what he does with them, because it gets pretty interesting. I'll just go ahead and put that out there. Okay, up first. Let's, I'm going to break down the characters here for you. We got Fred, Wilma, Barney, and Betty. Fred is our main character. He's he's your everyday husband, father to Pebbles, and married to Wilma. Barney is Fred's best friend. Betty is Barney's wife. And Bam Bam is Barney and Betty's son. So there's your 6 pretty key characters to the Flintstones. We got the Flintstones family and their friends, the Rubbles, Barney, Betty, and Bam Bam. What kind of
quick?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the Flintstones album?
The album?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
I'm gonna try to find it in some.
If you got it on Spotify, find it on Spotify and send me a link. Oh, that's awesome. That's I knew something. Alvin and the Chipmunks have one, so I imagine the Flintstones has probably got one out there too.
So do the Turtles.
All I know is that the Flintstones actually do. I think they do a cover of like A Spoonful of Sugar. But I remember like the opening to it is this groovy disco, the Flintstones, the Flintstones, and it's
awesome. We sit here and I was talking about do these young whippersnappers know who the Flintstones are? And I just thought it just occurs to me that, hey, Fruity Pebbles, Jesse. I mean, is he not on the cover? He's not on the box of. He's on the box of every cereal. Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Pebbles, Bonnie.
That was scary.
So, and John Cena, of course, brought back Fruity Pebbles there for a little while, and the Flintstones vitamins, which we will be talking about those here as a matter of fact. I can't think of any other branding other than, of course, the famous YouTube smoking ad, which apparently was one of the things that they ran back in the 60s, where I think
everybody smoked back then.
Fred I think is doing some kind of a
Winston cigarettes.
Is it really? Yeah. Wow. So there is an animated ad out there for cigarettes back when this show hit popularity. Man, boy, the cigarette. That was bad news. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. We'll get into issue 1. Introduce the characters. I'm following my notes here finally. Issue 1. We get the intro, pretty much the introduction to the life of Fred, Barney, Wilma, and Betty. Okay. Just like I said, these guys are friends. I think neighbors. Also, Fred and Barney work at the Slate Quarry, I think. I don't know if Barney works there or not. I assume he does, but we definitely know Fred does. He goes there for his daily job. Slate's Quarry, moving rocks. Now, in this issue, Fred has to show
from one place to the other.
just doing the job. Fred has to show 3 new Neanderthals. Now, make sure Neanderthals is the correct term. Cro-Magnons are not. We'll make sure we get that right. 3 new Neanderthals around. His boss, Slate, says, hey, take these guys out on the town, convince them to stay in Bedrock, because the Neanderthals, even though they aren't so smart, they are definitely strong and they can do a good job. So I want these guys to come into town, stay here. They get a job at the quarry, and hey, life is good because now I have 3 muscle-bound Neanderthals who can do a good job and get paid what I pay them. So that's Fred's job for issue 1. The Wilma, I'll go back to Wilma. Wilma in this issue gets some paintings that she had done, accepted at a museum. And really the big plot line there is as she takes them to the museum, and they get heavily criticized because her paintings are hand paintings. And there's a little bit of a message there that they get across about how much art means to her. The art that she does means to her, but as everybody else looks at it, they pretty much crap upon it. So there's that. The Neanderthals that Fred and the Neanderthals and Fred and Wilma actually go to Slate's house for a hot tub party, where one of their friends. It's funny because Slate just keeps trying to talk these guys into doing stuff at this party. These Neanderthals, like, hey, why don't you go over there and eat this spider? I'll give you this money. So he has no respect for these people at all. No respect for the Neanderthals, even though they talk. It's not like they're beyond communicating. They talk like everybody else. They're just a little bit separate from, the hominids of the humans here in Bedrock. So anyway, he talks them. Is this from Spotify?
No, that would be a wiki. But
Okay.
now it's not. I gotta go back on Spotify see if it's on there. But I actually had that record as a kid.
Wow.
I want to listen to it now.
We've got to find it on Spotify. It's either on Spotify or on YouTube, one or the other.
Yeah, that I'm determined to find this now.
So at this hot tub party, Slate's trying to convince these Neanderthals to do something stupid for money. And finally, he convinces one of them to go out and kill this mammoth, and the Neanderthal gets the bad end of that deal and gets crushed. So the Neanderthals, the two remaining Neanderthals, get up, after the party, look at Fred and are like, "We're out of here. We're done. We're leaving." And Fred's like, "Why? Why are you? What's going on?" And Slate's doing the same thing. "What are you talking about? I've got you here. I got you a job. I mean, it's got to be better than the life you were in." To which the Neanderthals say, civilization is not for them, as it seems as though the point is always to get someone else to do the killing for you. And they head back out into the wilderness, leaving Bedrock behind. And that's pretty much where we leave issue 1. Now, a far cry from the superhero comics that we've talked about before. These are almost like everyday human issues set back in the prehistoric age with Fred and Barney. However, there are some life, help me out here, Ronnie. Wow.
Lessons.
Thank you. I think there's some life lessons involved in this story. Okay, I have this first issue and this first discussion point. So, Ronnie, I'm going to bring this up to you, buddy.
Okay.
All right. Get your size ready. And I'm not talking. Oh man, I was about to make a Raphael joke. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the size. Anyway, all right. So, what do you think of the statement that they're making at the end of that book about how civilization? Yeah, it's going to issue 1, folks. Civilization seems to be the only point of civilization is to get someone else to do your killing. And I took that as a job for you. You got any insight as to whether that's a true statement, or do you believe that's a false statement?
That's a very dark outlook on life, on civilization as a whole. You talk about this being a far cry from the superhero comic books that we read. This is a far cry from the original Flintstones. The only thing that they really have going for them between the original cartoon and this is the character names, the time period, and that's about it.
I hear you.
I just think it's a really dark outlook on civilization as a whole. It's a kind of a negative look on humanity as a whole as well. So they're just saying that, to me, it was kind of a look on how we view government and people and everybody today is like the only reason or corporation or whatever, the only way to get it, that people are getting ahead is to step on the little guy, which is not true in all cases by any means necessary, in my opinion. Some people may disagree with me on that, but I've seen it. I've worked for large corporations, and while that may be true in some instances, it's not in others. So I just think that's a really, really bleak outlook on the whole situation on everything as a whole.
Do you think that? I mean, can you think of any? Now he specifically says civilization, so he's not really saying life itself. But I was hard pressed to sit here and think of you know, of a job or something where that just didn't apply. Because it always seems like, hey, you are doing the man's bidding, no matter what. I can't think of any other job where you're not doing something else for somebody else. Mark Radlich, you want to chime in?
I mean, I thought it was very realistic.
It's it's realistic to a certain point, and now, like I said, it would be very naive of me to say that doesn't exist now. It'd be very naive, and I'd be very wrong.
Mhm.
But I just don't think everybody's like that.
No, but I mean, but I don't. I think the whole comic book is supposed to be a satire on life, and there are absolutely people who will do that. I think more than you think. I don't think it's an indictment of the corporation culture at large, but again, I think there's time to sort of partition out, like, well, some people are okay, but other people are no. He was, look, Slate's a character that's used to represent the shitty boss, the shitty rich person who, I mean, why was the $1 Million Man in the WWE so popular? Because it was a character that everyone could identify with. They didn't parcel out like, well, there's this and that. They made one guy who paid a small black child to bounce a basketball, and then he kicked the basketball out of his hand. Okay. That's why I'm bringing that up. It's the same sort of thing, and it's obviously resonant enough and a popular enough notion that it keeps coming back up in different aspects of the culture. That was how many years ago on an episode of Superstars?
Yeah.
In the WWF, and we're still talking about the same exact type of thing in a comic book written in 2016. By the way, just sent you Bedrock Rock from the Fred Flintstones Mary Poppins LP.
Bedrock Rock.
Mary Poppins?
Yes. The whole gimmick with this record.
God, man, where are you finding this stuff?
I had it as a kid. The whole gimmick, really quick, was that Fred keeps writing these songs, and he's like, I got this hit song, and he'll like start singing like Chim Chim Cheree, and Barney's like, Fred, stop. Fred, no, Fred. that exists already. And he realizes at the end of the album, like, oh, the reason why I keep writing all these songs is I'm remembering that we just saw Mary Poppins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great.
I will definitely be giving that a listen soon. Absolutely. Oh,
we need to cover this on the Metal Hammer of Doom. This whole album, it's fucking awesome.
Well, that was my one discussion point. Really, to me, it sounded like more like a discussion about how, and I get the impressions you guys were seeing. How Slate looked like the overbearing businessman, and they just do this, and I'll give you money, but then you get to thinking about the whole of civilization itself. As soon as you take on of course, we're all trying to do something just to better ourselves, but it seems like you're always doing that one thing to better somebody else above you as well.
It's funny to hear you talk about this, because that next week we're going to talk about Black Mirror, specifically that second episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where this poor girl, all she wants to do is sing, and they're just like, can you just like take off your shirt and show us the titties? It's like, I just want to sing. They're like, yeah, but what if you don't sing and you just fuck on camera? Would that be cool? And she does it.
Yep.
Because she doesn't want to be on the bike anymore. This is what I mean by like, this is all resonant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's society as a whole, or civilization as a whole. It's just one of the things that he said in his interviews, what Mark Russell said in his interviews, was that he wanted to take the opportunity with this book to show you everything that is wrong with civilization, or at least his views of what is wrong with civilization. And I kind of see that. I can see where he's coming from. I mean, these Neanderthals out in the middle of nowhere, they're hanging out, they're having a good time, just living their life. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, why don't you come on up here? We've got a better life for you. You can move rocks for us. We'll pay you money. You can go get food, blah, 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 do all this stuff, move yourself right into this system. And then all of a sudden, after, I don't know, 1 or 2 days that they were hanging out with Fred and Mr. Slate, they're like, no, screw this. We're heading back to the trees. We're done. Because there's no point in it. If you're wanting us to continue to do stuff for you, I was perfectly fine doing what I was doing for myself. Neat message. Ronnie, is this, were you were not impressed with this first issue?
No.
Okay.
I guess I'm kind of taking it to heart because I did watch it as a kid, and this is not what the Flintstones to
It's
me
weird.
should be. Yeah,
you're right, man. It's weird to see a property. And I think that's what takes me. I think that what makes this very interesting for me is that they've taken a property that I was so used to as a kid and have put a spin on it. Now, I want to say that that's unique, but really it's not, because we see it all the time in movies now. We see it in a lot of different media, but the Flintstones just seem so innocent. Would you agree, Ronnie?
Absolutely. And to me, like, okay, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, your beliefs and your you can even say politics are going to come out, no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
In some sort of art, some sort of outlet, who you are is going to come out. Who we are comes out in our shows, on our podcasts.
Yep.
But this is, to me, it was a little too preachy. You know what I mean? It starting off. It just kind of started off with me. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong. My way of life, my way of thinking is better than what anybody else has for you.
Yeah,
I guess. And it could be that I disagree with him on 90% of what he's saying through these books, but it's it hit me hard because I'm like, no, this is not the Flintstones. This is not what they represent. This is not who they are. They're fun. They're a loving family, and I don't know. Never mind. I'll shut up.
Well, no, we're going to again save some of that stuff there because we'll definitely come back to that towards the end there.
Right, we do know that this was a parody of the Honeymooners, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The Flintstones, the cartoon, the original cartoon.
Yeah, I definitely think you're looking back on it then with rose-colored glasses.
Please, you want to go ahead and kind of elaborate on that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I think you're looking back on The Simpsons, and
we'll call it the Flintstones right now, but
whatever, Namesy. I think you have a childhood attachment to the Flintstones that you sort of you have it in this very, very specific light, and you associate very, very positive memories to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look back on it objectively, one, it was a takeoff of the Honeymooners, which was about an obnoxious fat guy who kept threatening to beat his wife.
He did keep threatening to beat his wife.
But did you ever hear Fred threaten to beat Wilma?
It was a children's show.
Yeah, but it was also the 60s. They were advertising cigarettes on, with him. I mean, like, oh, hey, I'm Fred Flintstone. I like to light up with
there was no way they were going to encourage kids to be like, all right, and this isn't George Lucas's Star Wars. You just can't go around decking women. So
the original script.
Yes, go listen to our podcast, our 12-episode podcast. But I mean, if you'll remember going back, yeah, Wemmel got plenty of play too in that show. I mean, she definitely gave Fred the business,
Yeah.
and it was always, it was very much the template for what would eventually become like the know nothing dad.
Right.
He throws his weight around, but really it's the woman who runs. Excuse me, it's the woman who sort of runs the show. But I still say that I still think that there was a lot of social commentary in that show. Yes, there were a lot of sight gags. Yes, there were a lot of one-liners and everything else. It couldn't get too preachy, but I would tell you even back then it was a bite on the contemporary times of that age.
Right.
And it just may be that we were kids and didn't pick up on it because we were not the children of the men of the 20s. We were children of the men of the 70s. And so we're looking at a cartoon that was written for a contemporary audience. And much like, kids watching stuff now that we watched as kids, it's like, okay, well, we get the sight gags, it's like watching the Minions movie. Like the kids like it for the fun, banana and the colorful images and, little tablet sized people punching each other in the face. But Robert Winfrey and I watched that movie too. And we got some of the admittedly stupid commentary that the movie was giving about life, the universe, and everything. So, like I said, I think the idea that, the Flintstones shouldn't have this biting satire sort of misses the point of what the Flintstones originally was anyway.
Okay. I can agree with that and see where you're coming from for sure. Because
I definitely can see where you're coming from.
Absolutely. Pow, bang, zoom to the moon.
I see that.
One of these days. I've watched a few honeymooners in my day too. That was
Didn't
another
she
one.
always get up over him anyway too?
Oh, she did.
Yes. Yeah.
It seemed like the whole show was him just walking home drunk with his pants half off. Like, Alice, come here so I can punch you in the chin. Well, here's my friend
so
George
wrong.
Lucas. And then, and she was just like, oh, I have the meatloaf. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was one of these days, Alice, and she'd get right up in his grill. She'd pull a Glock out and be like, one of these days, what, you fat motherfucker? And he'd be like, hey, I'm just driving a bus around here. That's how I remember the honeymooners.
Oh, wonderful.
Your version of the honeymooners was vastly different than mine.
I watched an unedited cut.
Oh, okay.
Special edition.
Where Alice had a clock.
Yeah, and dropped the F-bomb quite frequently, apparently.
All right. Well, so that's our deep first issue of deep. And we dissected that one. So let's go in. We'll get into issue 2, which I have affectionately titled the crap issue, because all this issue is about is, I think, really, it's about materialism. And there's a good bit of theology in here as well, or a discussion about religion. First off, Fred takes the family to the first church of animism, which I never did look up that word. So if anybody knows what that word is or wants to look it up as I'm talking, please feel free to do so. But the first church of animism, which later on in the comic book becomes the Reformed first church of animism. And so we get a glimpse of how Fred and Wilma and Pebbles go and worship their God, which I think was Morp at the beginning of this issue, and it tends to go through quite a few changes as we go through the issue as well. Now,
whenever you're ready, by the way,
go ahead, tell me, please. Animism.
The belief that natural objects, natural phenomena in the universe itself possess souls. Okay.
Now, I can't remember what Morp was. Was Morp the? I know that Ronnie exasperately sighs. Anyway, I think at one point Morp was I can't remember what it was, but I know that they played this record, and then everybody was like, "What the hell are you talking about? This Morp is a god." And well, then the next Sunday, they've erased Morp from existence. They said, "Hey, we've got a new god here. It's this Peaches." And it turns out to be a pink elephant. And of course, everybody is now worshiping the elephant. Now, as the side story goes, it has become evident as Barney gets a brand new TV, the first one in existence, that the town of Bedrock has been taken over by I'll say a plague, but it's more like this unsatiable urge to get more stuff. The news is even reporting it that and they call it specifically in this book crap. It is called crap. People can't get enough crap, so everybody's running around and just buying stuff, including Fred and Wilma. Wilma has Fred go and buy a dishwasher, which is, of course, we get the talking animals / appliances in these books, just like we did in the cartoon. We get the octopus dishwasher. We get one of my favorite characters, Power Goat.
Power Goat, motherfucker.
Power Goat, which apparently is a weed eater that Fred picks up, and all he says is Power Goat.
Power Goat, motherfucker.
That's not all he says.
Well, he does. At one point, he does say Power Goat bitch, right? Or biznitch or something like that.
I'm walking around just yelling out Power Goat from now on.
Power Goat. Hey, we starts it up, Power Goat. Anyway.
It's like, hey, you have a performance review coming up. What are some of the things you think you do well here? Power Goat, motherfucker.
Power Goat. Oh,
Give this man a raise.
So now, in order to keep up with the crap costs stuff. Okay, it costs money to keep up with the crap. Right. So, in order to do this, Fred and Barney have to figure out a way to supplement their income. And what they find out is there's this guy who is he's generous enough to offer him a stake as to become vitamin salesman. So Fred and Barney become vitamin salesmen, which, as I said, we would get back to this. It hit me tonight. I did not catch this, but they clearly it was a nod to the Flintstones vitamins, which Fred specifically says after trying to shill all this stuff, trying to sell all of these vitamins, Fred can't get a leg up. He sells one bottle and he's ecstatic, and he's trying to figure out. He's like, man, Marty must be having a hard time trying to sell this stuff. And he runs over and he finds out Barney has actually got people surrounding him trying to buy stuff off of him because he's told everybody that he's given Bam Bam these vitamins. And if anybody remembers what Bam Bam can do, Bam Bam is he's just unordinarily strong.
Yeah, strong.
Crazy strong. He can pick things up with one hand, and that was a staple in the cartoons. So he's sitting there. I think Bam Bam has like a car above his head or something, and all these people are flocking, thinking that Barney has given the vitamins to this kid, and they all want some. Anyway, so when
he ain't no Power Goat.
when Fred goes and gets his pay for his one bottle he sold after he tried and devoted all these hours, almost getting mauled by a T-Rex, and the guy gives him, the one pay for one bottle of vitamins that he sold, he goes off, to which he runs out, throws the vitamins, and then looks at this kid and says, vitamins are a scam. Let that sink in. And in the interview that I watched where Mark Russell was talking about these books, he said that he can't believe that got past DC editorial. When he put that in there, he's like, surely this is something that they're going to throw back in my face, because clearly the Flintstones have built this brand up. But obviously, he was counting on people like me who didn't get it until reading it 3 times. So, hey.
Power Goat, baby.
You were distracted by Power Goat.
Yes, I was distracted. There you go. I was distracted by Power Goat.
We get it.
Now, in the midst of finding all their crap, the family realizes that the Peaches, the god at their church, they happen upon this store that has like 6 peaches sitting in a stall, and it turns out the elephants are vacuum cleaners. So they are worshiping a vacuum cleaner at their church. And they go back and they throw a fit about that, to where these preachers or priests are just, they're confounded. They don't know what to do. They keep coming up with stuff, and then the next thing you know, well, that's on the market and people are buying it. So they can't find something that's actually going to fit to be a god without it actually being a specific thing. Until finally, some guy just takes a blank piece of paper. One of the priests takes a blank piece of paper and holds it up. He goes, "I'm thinking about this." And the other priest looks at it and says, "There's nothing there." And he looks at him and he says, "Exactly." Now that's hitting some stuff. You can tell there's a message there that the guy's trying to get across. I know you can. Sign number 5. So there we go. And I'm trying to think of, oh yes, our message about crap. I forgot about Wilma's great heartwarming message about crap, because they talk, they're just overwhelmed with all the stuff they kept buying. And Wilma finally comes out and says, "Look, all the stuff that has ever made me happy is just it pretty much boils down to me being next to someone or something that loves me back. And all this crap can't do that for you." So at that time, Fred was like, "You're right." And he gathers all this stuff up and he's taking it back to the store. And of course, the store's kind of giving him a hard time. "Hey, you've used this a little too much." So he gets in-store credit. He has no idea what he's going to get until he looks down and he realizes that there is this purple dinosaur down there on the floor. And he asks the storekeeper, "What does that do?" And the storekeeper looks at him and says, "Well, he does nothing." And Fred's like, "I'll take it." So there, it turns out to be the first appearance of Dino, our lovable mutt that always jumps on, a lovable mutt dinosaur that always jumped on Fred as he came home. That was always in the intro, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, there you go. There's our issue 2. Crap, Power Goat. Mark, I gave this one to you, right?
Yep.
What's your thoughts, man? What's your talking point here?
I love this issue. I think it's great. It's not nearly as good as the next one. The next one's phenomenal.
Okay.
It's my favorite one of the 4, to be perfectly honest with you. But there's a couple of things. I don't know if it was introduced in this issue or the next one, but a couple of things I definitely wanted to bring up. One thing that you didn't talk about yet, and again, because it might not have come up yet, but was the Royal Order of Water Buffalo.
Oh,
in
yes.
this case, is that they're actually veterans of a war, and it's serious stuff, and it's like a lot of them like PTSD. I think one of them actually kills himself. It's very dark, but it's interesting, and I like the fact that he took a lot of the very innocent gags or staples of the Flintstones and gave them depth and meaning. So, the idea of going to your club, as a man of the 60s, and he sort of turns that on its head, and it's now they're veterans of this horrible war that they fought, and it's a war that gave them civilization, but at the cost of their humanity. I'm like, that's fucking great. Mm-hmm. And if you're somebody who deals with veterans a lot through the course of my professional career, they would, I think, tell you that, a lot of the quote unquote freedom that we have in this country comes at the cost, and it comes at the cost of a lot of people's humanity. They have to become soldiers. Soldiers have to become killing machines. They have to, go to these horrible places, these deserts and these places that look like the Slate Rock Quarry, places like Afghanistan, and they have to face these horrible situations, put their lives on the line, but it's so that we back here in this country can continue to live the lives that we do
and buy our crap.
and buy our crap.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the second thing. But I really wanted to make sure that we talked about that as much as it's very dark, and maybe not in line with the original concept of the Flintstones, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great use of what was a relatively stupid thing in the cartoon, the Royal Order of Water Buffalo.
Yeah.
So, but the idea of a consumer-driven culture, I mean, do we have to talk long about that? Is that not evident?
It's keeping up with the Joneses. I mean,
just look at. We just got through the Christmas season.
Yeah.
And how much of the Christmas season, Jesse, and you went on a fucking crazy rant on the Christmas show.
To be followed up by the 12 months of I don't give a fuck by you.
Yes. I'm not going to say that I didn't try to top it, but let's be serious. You went on this whole rant about buying presents for the kids and everything. And I feel like what you were really trying to say is, was it really necessary to buy each kid 100 presents? No, one present would have done it. One present was all they needed.
Yep.
But we do it. And why do we do it? I feel a need to compensate for something. I don't know why. I told you the whole thing about buying Jonas the 12-inch DC figures and the math that I had to go through, and none of it mattered.
Yeah.
But I felt it was important. We Christmas is over and the packages are still coming into this house. Now, we just bought a salt lamp. I'm not going to say it was a bad idea. I'm just saying we did. We don't need it, but we got it.
Well, you can always play Indiana Jones with it.
My wife just got a dock for her Apple Watch. Didn't need it, got it anyway. I'm staring at a pile of graphic novels I have not even begun to start reading yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I just bought a Carrie Fisher book after our podcast that we did that I've only read 2 chapters of. I don't have enough time to finish reading the books I've already got on my shelf, but I went and bought more books. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Button down. So I mean, what is this not about if not the exact culture we're living in and we're a part of and contribute to? So I really thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. Ronnie, I could go on and on about I sit down here in this basement and I work and I look around at all the stuff that isn't worthy of being upstairs and how long it's sat down here. I look at a box and I'm like, that hasn't been opened up for 3 years. Why the hell do I have it? Why do I continue? Because I bought something new dude, I kid you not, for the kids. Now, a lot of this is hand-me-down stuff, so I can't say that I went out and bought it, but because we have kids and Colton is growing up, we have a lot of clothes that somebody has given to us to where I've got 2 or 3 bins worth of clothes that this kid hasn't even grown into yet. But I continue to just store them down here. And I know for a fact, probably at some point, there's going to be where I go upstairs and I've realized that this kid's too big for the clothes that I've kept downstairs for the past 3 or 4 years. We never brought them out. It's just crap that we have some kind of weird attachment to. Is there something that you could say? For me, it's comics. Personally, it's comics. Okay, I know that I could tell you I can go upstairs and out of the 12 long boxes of comics that I may have read 4. That's bad. That's some bad crap. That's something that I bought at an auction or something just because I wanted to have it. You got a Vice, Ronnie, that you buy that you got to have.
Pop vinyl figures.
I knew that was coming. The pops.
Pop vinyl figures. Okay, and it started with me because a friend of mine, he has so many of these things, and I was like, I'll never buy one of those. And I bought a couple of them, and my sister has them. Let me put it this way: I bought them, and I started collecting them, and I started thinking about it. I was like, man, I really want this. A new movie came out, so that means there's new Pops that came out. Funko was putting out, Pops. I mean, shoot, there's 18 pops, and I've got 2 of them, and I need the other 2. I need, quote unquote, the other 2.
I need it. That's my
Yeah.
3-year-old's favorite saying, by the way, is I need it.
Right, your 3-year-old.
That wasn't a shot at you, by the way.
No, and I totally get it. So I like I said, this goes back to the 10% I may agree with. We are too caught up in crap. We're too caught up as a society, as a person. I'm just going to lay this on me. I'm too caught up in keeping up with the Joneses. I don't need an Apple Watch because this guy I saw another guy I know with one on his wrist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need this. I don't need the latest iPhone. I don't need this, but I do it anyway because this other person has it, or it's cool and I want it. So I get it, and a lot of times it's to fill a void that we have in our lives. I really truly believe that's where my beliefs come in. We surround ourselves with this stuff thinking it'll make us feel better, and it does nothing but break our bank accounts, make us envious of our neighbor and what that person has.
And just like Wilma said, it can't love you back.
It can't love you back. So, yeah, we can have our vices. I'm not saying that, you don't have your collections or whatever, the things you enjoy, comic books or pop vinyl figures or what, or graphic novels or whatever. But when it comes to a point of, where I look at something and I need it because somebody else has it or it's the newest thing, then I have to sit down. I have to do a gut check. And I'm like, I don't need this at all. This is something that my me as a person, my for lack of a better term, my flesh wants more than I really, I don't need that crap. So go ahead.
Let me say 2 things. Number one, I don't have as much of a sentimental attachment to stuff anymore because I've moved and I've lost so much stuff over the course of moves and a divorce, and just, I've lost cars, I've lost CDs, I've lost comics, I've lost toys. I have definitely, especially in my youth, collected a lot of stuff. Star Wars figures, like I said, comic book, but I've had to sell or I've lost so much of this stuff that I've now turned the other way, where I don't really want to own anything. The only reason why I'm even buying the physical graphic novels is because it literally hurt my eyes to read them on the Kindle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, and I want to read these stories. I want to dictate Jesse's schedule for him. So
I'm glad it costs you money to do that.
And all that stuff. and I don't want to, I'm not taking a shot at anybody when I say that, when I say the stuff that I'm saying at all. It goes towards myself more than anything. Right. It's not a shot at anybody on the show or anybody in particular or anybody, at all. It's just saying, for me, I agree with him that me personally, I am too caught up in what I can get and what I quote unquote need, right, just because the other person has it.
I recently sold a bunch of my Wii stuff and some podcasting equipment. I pawned it, not because I really needed to, but I was just like, I'm not using this stuff. I need to get it out of the house. Like, and that's what I was getting to. Like, I'm now gone so far the other way that before, like a month before Christmas, I made my son go through his toys and like get rid of the ones he's not going to play with anymore to make room for the new stuff I knew was coming in. My daughter, I tried to do that, but I wasn't really home. So my wife kind of did it, and I got like a small bucket full of little toys. I'm like, really? Wait, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm expecting her to like clean out half her room, and she's like, my wife's like, you're a maniac. Calm down.
You sound like me, my friend. Trust me.
It's like, knock it the fuck off. But I really did, like, and I'm always going through like my son's clothing, and I'm like, well, and it was so funny because like he had a shirt. And the shirt, when he lifted up his arms, came like above his waist, just like a little above his belly. And I'm like, that shirt's too small. It's got to go.
Yes, that's what I do, man.
And my wife's like, it still fits.
No.
And I'm just like, no. What is he, Brad Pitt from Fight Club? Fuck off. He's not wearing it anymore. you know, but that's not to say that I didn't go right out and buy him 2 more shirts when we went to SeaWorld. You know, so it's, I mean, granted, he's got to wear clothing. I'm not saying I'm like, I will dress my child in rags, but no,
Right.
but he also didn't need the shirt from SeaWorld either. So, but like I look at, like, you know, like I'm still recovering from pneumonia, and so there's only so much physically that I can do. But I look around my living room, and I'm such a psycho now about it. Like, what else can I get rid of? You know, I literally look around the house looking for things to take out of this house.
You know what?
You know, to sell or pawn or throw in the street in madness.
Early plug for your concept show you got coming up here pretty soon about the whole "make me because someone made me." There is a documentary. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not, but maybe this is something I might make you do. Because I haven't watched it yet though, but I am really interested. Have you seen the advertisement on Netflix for minimalism or minimalist? I think
just saw that there was it. I saw that it existed. I don't know.
Oh boy, that could change our lives, Mark Radulich.
Oh no.
I'm a very sentimental person. That's why I have my not old, but some, you know, I decorated my Christmas tree with Star Wars toys. You know, I kept a hold of them because they're sentimental to me. They're you know, I'll keep these pop vinyl figures forever.
Wait. Were they precious to you?
Precious.
I'm not Smeagol. But you know, I get it. But there are certain things in my life that I don't need. I stopped. I personally, I really cut down on comic book reading. You know, buying new comic. I haven't bought a new comic book in a long time because, you know, it was taking up a lot of my money. You know, it was taking up, you know, and I don't need that. You know, half the time I was like, that's it. I don't even enjoy this. What am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, some of these books are just not enjoyable to me anymore. So I wait and I buy a bunch of them when they're on sale or whatever. If I'm following the storyline, or if I enjoy the storyline. So I get what he's saying in that. But
so my wife was a hoarder when I met her. She had
is she a hoarder, like by clinical terms or by Radulich's terms?
Radulich.
Okay.
She just
So
held
she
on
may
to a
have
lot of,
a couple of boxes.
well, no, let's not get silly. She she just had a lot of stuff that she had held on to. I mean, you know, she'd gone to college. She had moved back in with her parents. She had brought a lot of stuff back. So when I met her, her room was just full of stuff, and she forced herself into my apartment. And she only brought a little bit of stuff with her originally. And when the full move happened, you know, we had to go get all the stuff out of her room. Now I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment, right? And I have a very, you want to talk about minimalist. This is like post divorce. Okay. So I've now left my first wife, which is a whole other horror story. But I've now left my first wife. I've had to, because I left in sort of a rush, we'll call it that, a rush.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have like furniture or anything. So I'd like rebuy some stuff from Walmart to put my crap on. Speaking of crap, to take us back to the Flintstones. And then there were certain things that were donated to me by people, by friends of my parents who were like, "Oh, we're getting rid of some furniture. I hear your son's a loser and just left his wife. So would you like some used furniture?" Like, yes, I would. But my apartment was very bare, but at the time, it's what I needed. I needed like a fresh start. I needed a reset on my whole life at that point. So, I liked having almost nothing in my apartment. Like my bedroom literally had a bed and my clothes in it.
Oh,
That's it. My living room was like a TV, bookshelf, CD shelf, which had 1,000 CDs on it because psycho. And like if I haven't said it yet, my television. But then my wife moves. My girlfriend at the time moves in shortly thereafter. And it's like, we got to go get my stuff. And I'm looking, and there's a part of me that's like, doesn't really want to give up, quote unquote, that minimalist lifestyle that I had been living, because I felt it was like a cleansing. My apartment had very little stuff in it, and it was like, yeah, that's what my soul needs right now, is to not be laden with garbage.
Yeah.
And then, on the other hand, like, I also was like, I don't want all of your stuff in my apartment. And she's like, what, are you not committed to me? And I'm like, it's nothing to do with you. I didn't realize you were a package deal with all your crap. It was more of, it's more of, I have a small apartment. I can't afford to take 27 years of nonsense and shove it into my 2-bedroom, into my 2 rooms I currently pay rent on. And I remember I was trying to be funny about it. Like I am, but at the same time, I was also kind of mean, and I kept also using my dog as an excuse for why she couldn't bring all of her stuffed animals, and that was the thing. I don't know if Jesse went through this with his girlfriend, but if you date a girl with an enormous stuffed animal collection, apparently this is big time stuff here, and they can't go anywhere without it. And she tried to sell me on that argument. And I was like, my dog's going to tear apart all your stuffed animals. I just want you to know that. If you truly treasure this stuff, you will leave it in your mother's house
for the rest of your life.
And for the rest of your life, yeah. And then the moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen, is she married me anyway, so fuck you.
Jeez.
Anyway, the whole point of that, to bring it back to the Flintstones, is we get very caught up, and we meet others who are very caught up in just piling your life with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other ways to find meaning in life without acquiring possessions.
It's the truth.
So.
It's a good message. Good message. All right, let's get into issue 3 here. Issue 3 is pretty much Star Trek First Contact. That's the first thing I thought of. Some aliens come down after seeing the launch of, what was the name of that monkey? Mr. Bubbles is what I want to say, but that's not the name of it. Crap. I'm going to have to pull it up. Let me get into that issue here real quick. Bear with me, guys.
While you're doing that, I want to tell a quick story.
Go for it.
So when my daughter was 1 or 2 years old, she had a habit of pulling up her shirt. And it happened to be during my wife's actual spring break from school. So my daughter would pull up her shirt, my mother and my wife would go, "Woo, spring break!"
Oh no, that's a bad habit.
so it caught on, and every time, and my daughter would do it. Everyone would yell out "spring break," and then we would prompt her to do it by yelling "spring break." And that's all I could think about during this issue of the comic was, the alien teenagers coming down for spring break. And I'm just woo, spring break.
Oh, not good. Not good. Sergeant Grumbles was the name of the monkey. Not Mr. Bubbles, Sergeant Grumbles. That's
even better.
They come up with this great idea to launch this monkey into space by dropping a brontosaurus onto a pretty much a what is that, a teeter-totter seesaw, and they launch this thing into space. Of course, he doesn't make it all the way, but he makes it just enough so that some aliens find our civilization here at Bedrock. The aliens land, shake hands with Mr. Slate, and the aliens then are like, okay, we've set our highs, let's get on out of here. They get up and they leave the planet. About a day or so later, a bunch of the aliens come back. However, it's the aliens' children, pretty much. These kid aliens, smaller aliens, are running around. It's galactic break, and they've decided to spend it at Bedrock. So all of a sudden, Bedrock is overrun with all these little green aliens as they're drinking, they're having this tremendous time, puking all over the place. And of course, the citizens of Bedrock are like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, not too long ago, we made friends with these guys, and now all of a sudden they're coming here and just causing a bunch of trouble. Now, at one point, I think one of them gets arrested, and their buddy comes in and is like, hey, you can't put us in jail. What are you doing? And of course, the policeman's like, look, he was breaking the law in some way, shape, or form. To which the other alien's like, listen, let him out now. And the policeman says, nope. And then the alien disintegrates him in front of everybody else with an app on his phone. So now the citizens of Bedrock are a little upset. They're a little concerned because now these aliens, not only are they causing trouble, they're also vaporizing other people. So Pebbles and Bam Bam, we finally get an issue that kind of centers on them here, where Pebbles and Bam Bam, they how old would you say they are here, Mark? Like they're in their like preteen, maybe 11 or 12.
Yes, sure, 13.
13. So they're not the kids the babies that we were used to on the cartoon and what we watched. They're a little bit grown. They've got minds of their own. So they kind of come up with a plan by talking to the astronaut that sent Mr. Sergeant Grumbles into space, and they're going to try and fight these aliens out of Bedrock. But instead of actually resorting to violence, Pebbles comes up with the idea to send a message out into space, let the grown-up aliens know what's going on down here, because surely they wouldn't like what's been going on. The aliens come down after we have this fight on our hands. By the way, there's a little bit of this is where the guy that you were talking about, Mark, one of Fred's friends, Fred Barney's friends, is about to commit suicide. It's a dark part of the book. The guy's on the phone with the suicide hotline. They put him on hold,
Right.
that's classic. And then Fred and Barney show up and like, look, we need you. We need you to help out. So, he was just about to kill himself. He gets the note. He goes out and he helps Barney and Fred fight some of these aliens, to which he ends up getting disintegrated anyway. So he gets his wish, I guess. As sad as bad as that is to say, he ended up dying. So the grown-up aliens come down and take the rest of these spring break kids off the planet, but leave one alien behind in order to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, and that is the green alien, the Great Gazoo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you remember the Great Gazoo, Ronnie?
Yeah, I didn't like that.
You didn't like the little Martian?
No. Not
Oh,
so
come
much.
on, dum-dum.
Yeah. Thanks.
I need to find out who voiced him. You guys go ahead and talk. I got to find out who voiced the Great Gazoo.
Gazoo was awesome. Hello, dum-dum.
I knew he was going to say that. I don't know. I just never really cared for that part of the cartoon. I mean, it was okay, but it was kind of like, I don't, you don't want to say, oh, it was too silly because it was a.
Oh my goodness! I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Would you like to know who voiced the Great Gazoo?
Absolutely.
Harvey Korman.
Nice.
Really?
Yes.
Newfound respect for Gazoo.
Yeah, I do too now a little bit.
Oh wow, man, that guy's funny. Carol Burnett show, right?
Yep.
Oh, it's great stuff. All right, sorry, Ronnie, I interrupted you.
Oh
Continue.
no, it's just it just never appealed to me as a kid.
I liked it. I liked the alien. Of course, I'm big excited about crossovers and stuff like that. And I won't even get into the fact of how big into aliens I was when I was a kid. Boy, I read Communion when I was like 13. Jeez. So yeah, Whitley Strieber, buddy. Strieber, something like that. Anyway.
Yep.
Whitney Houston?
No, Mark Radulich. But yeah.
Jesse always talks to me like I'm a disappointing son.
I don't know. I noticed that too.
I do it on podcasts. I do it when you're not here.
He just
Mark
says,
Radulich. I'm so disappointed in you.
He's
Like,
pretty much he's pretty much resigned to the fact that I'm an idiot. And then, but he has hopes for Mark. Please don't dash him against the rocks.
All right, Ronnie. I think I gave you this issue, didn't I?
Yeah.
You got anything? I mean, I already spoke about the Great Gazoo, which I always thought it was kazoo. By the way, I didn't know it was kazoo. Yeah, seriously, I thought it was kazoo.
Did the G sound throw you off,
buddy? Ronnie Adams, what do you want to talk about on this issue?
This was a little off. This is one episode that I actually enjoyed, other than the whole suicide. I couldn't get into that.
Guy.
Yeah. But it was actually pretty funny. I mean, like, they were literally had slingshot rifles with rocks and fighting against these apps that could disintegrate you. And but I guess at this point I was just like, I'm done with this whole series, so I'm just going to take it as for what it is. And I didn't really look for any commentary or anything in it.
Okay. And this seemed like the more lighthearted one for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, there wasn't anything
pressing other than we treat our veterans horrible.
Yeah. Oh, do we get the origin of the phrase "yabba dabba do" in this one?
Yes, it's kind of like woosah.
It's the calming phrase that he is taught by his group.
Yabba dabba do.
Yeah, and that's, which is kind of funny. Now, if you put that spin on it, I don't know if that fits within the cartoons at all.
Not at all. This whole thing doesn't fit.
Yeah, I have to agree with Ronnie there. It couldn't be the further from not fitting.
Yabba dabba do. You stressed, Fred? Are you stressed out, man?
All the cars are at the starting line, and the rider just turns his freaking car around backwards and said, "I'm going the other way." And they're like, no,
You don't like that.
You got to go this way. And he's like, "No, I'm going against the grain." Blah, 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 blah.
I'm gonna have a sandwich.
Yeah, I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up the mountain, but the racetrack is down here. I don't care.
You don't like him putting a spin on it.
You could put your own spin on it. At first, when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, this is more modern. Flintstones. This is going to be kind of cool. They actually look like cavemen. The muscles, the craziness, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, this is going horribly. Why are you doing this?" That was my whole take on the whole thing.
Okay, Mark, you said this was your favorite, man. What else do you have to add?
I love this. I thought it was hilarious. I thought the concept of like wild alien children on a backwater cave world was fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
just running around and killing. Oh god, this is gonna make me sound like such a sociopath, but like running around killing people indiscriminately with an app. I laughed.
Right. I mean, other than the deaths and the suicide, it's kind of what you expect of the Flintstones. Other than the death and suicide, I say. But
yeah, the fucking Flintstones were known for. Game of Stones.
Boom! Oh, don't say that because he'll use it.
Here's what I thought was funny about it. Not just the surface level, just the whole concept of art. But just once, I want to hear you scream. Play some rap music. I know. Anyway, anyone?
Last Boy Scout.
Hell yeah!
Nice.
All right. Love that line. Play some rap music.
It's a great line.
So cool. Anyway, do you have any idea what we're talking about, Jesse?
I've seen The Last Boy Scout. It's been a while.
Okay.
I'm about to dance a
All
jig.
right.
Because you think you're so cool, Joseph. Because it wasn't Joe. It was Joseph.
Right.
Sorry.
Joseph. Anyway, but we think we're so modern, and then something comes along and it's like, hey, remember when cell phones were these bricks, with an antenna?
Yep.
And if you had one, boy, did you think you were the talk of the town? You were the cock of the walk.
Oh yeah.
And now, like walking around with a brick with an antenna on it, you'd hit them with it because it's just how ridiculous.
What do you think?
I really like the idea of turning things on its head and examining it from another point of view. That's why the next issue to me is also really funny because it takes the whole concept of gay marriage and traditional marriage and flips it, and how we look at it, not just the concepts themselves. But I mean, I got a kick out of it. One, because it was such a chaotic issue, but also because of this idea of, if you really look at our society and you really look at our culture, we're not as advanced as we think we are. You know, I go back to, I mentioned it before, and we're going to talk about it next week on TV Party Tonight. You know, that episode of Black Mirror where they ride these bikes to power their devices, and their devices are filled with apps that are basically nothing.
Yeah.
You know, nothing has any meaning, but, you know, yet we have all this pomp, we have all this circumstance, we have all this stuff going on to, and you know, and you see how these issues sort of build on each other. You know, that second issue was about crap, you know, and really that third issue plays on the idea of a world full of crap. Because Slate talks about in the first issue, you know, we're such an advanced civilization, we're so much better than the Neanderthals, and by the third issue, their civilization starts like getting wiped out by, you know, by a more, by an app, by a more advanced civilization that came to their world just to party. You know, and it's like you think about how many times, just as an example, you know, like Western Europeans came to a savage land and destroyed it.
A lot of that overtone in here. That's what I get to.
Yeah.
It's just about, you know, here we come. All right. And
now that you say it like that, I can see it.
White men come to pillage my village. When
you say it like that, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Because he know how to take over. Oh, yeah. Kill all the white man. All right, go on.
Oh, goodness. All right.
Come on,
I'm the only
one who listens to No Effects. No, you guys didn't know Kill All the White Man by No Effects?
Yeah. I did not know that one.
All right.
And I would like to say that the views and
disclaimer time.
The views expressed on this show don't reflect me. I don't want to kill anyone.
Oh yeah. Kill all the white man.
There is.
Whoa.
There are some the veteran issues that you talked about are pretty prominent in this issue too. This issue 3 or issue number 3, where, you know, that's again PTSD. We'd mentioned about the guy wanting to commit suicide. Also, they talk about, you know, going and fighting their war, coming back and not having any respect. And then finally, we have this invading alien race who steps up to try and fight for their country, but the veterans that were in that hall. So you could tell that has that. How do I want to say that?
I'll say a few. If the Red Chinese show up on the eastern shores of the United States, it won't be the fucking millennials that pick up a gun and defend us from the Reds. It's going to be your dad.
That's right.
Okay. You know, that's what he's saying, and it's very true. These fucking vaping skinny jeans, you know, pansy asses aren't going to be defending shit.
We always talk about Pawpaw Starch on the Screaming Boy Network. It's time to introduce you to Pawpaw Mark.
There you go.
Get a job, you hippie.
Off my lawn.
All right, well, let's go ahead. We'll get into issue 4. We'll get this rounded out here before midnight. We're coming close. Issue 4. Now, this is the one that, wow, you want to touch on some pretty present religious and political topics. Wow. Issue 4 will do it. And I think this is the one where I was like, Mark, you've got to read it. And again, I hadn't really sat down and read this up until just recently, like really in depth. So let me go ahead and give the brief synopsis of what happens in this issue. Fred and Wilma go on a marriage retreat. Now that definitely sounds like the great beginning of a Flintstones episode, in my opinion. Hey, Fred and Wilma are going to go on a marriage retreat. Oh boy, what kind of hijinks are they going to get into today?
Political and social commentary. That's the hijinks. Those are the hijinks, and it's terrible.
Oh, now hold on.
You funny nutty.
We have a very poignant way of showing marriage in this issue. It's kind of like the reverse. It's the reverse of kind of the way we look at marriage today, where marriage is the established custom. You know, two people get married. In this book, people before Fred and Wilma, or at least most people before Fred and Wilma, just went to the sex cave.
Like you do.
Like you do. You just go to the sex cave, you go have sex, and there's no marriage whatsoever. And now all of a sudden this newfangled concept of getting married has come around. And the rest of Bedrock are in an uproar. This is not what we are used to. What are you guys doing? And they have this neat way of, Mark Russell has this neat way of writing it so that it's reversed, where there's commentary about polygamy, monogamy, and there's also a commentary about gay marriage and street marriage in here. The retreat is neat because when Wilma and Fred get to the retreat, there are 3 couples in this retreat. There's the old couple that's been married for years to where they almost hate each other. Then we have Fred and Wilma, who are about your mid-range 30, 40-year-old husband and wife who have been married for a little while. And then we have these 2 kids who are thinking of getting married. Like I said, at this point, marriage in Bedrock is new and it's frowned upon. Just go to the sex cave like everybody else. Now, they're in such an uproar that they decide some parts of the community decide to go protest the marriage retreat. And the guy that's holding the retreat, when the protesters show up, makes this plea. He makes this plea to these guys. Listen, if you could just respect each other's choices. And he goes through 3 or 4 panels of an explanation of why we should be more tolerant of what other people are choosing. And so he goes on and on to where he actually wins over the protesters. They're like, you know what? You're probably right. We should actually respect other people's choices more. And they kind of start splitting, they split amicably. The protesters go home. The guy at the marriage retreat turns around. And then up on the hill come Adam and Steve proclaiming that they have just gotten married, to which the guy who's holding the retreat, I'll never forget this, because he looks right at him. He's like, I don't freaking think so. And he is absolutely against the fact that these 2 men have gotten married. And of course, Wilma comes up to him and says, what are you talking about? 3 seconds ago, you were just preaching about how we should be more tolerant of other people. And he says, well, yeah, you're probably right, but most likely I'm not going to. And that was kind of like the end. I mean, he just came to the conclusion like, oh, okay, yeah, but it's not going to happen. Fred does a good job, or at least, Mark Russell does a good job of making Fred explain why the non-breeders are essential to society, basically, especially Bedrock society, about how they had to survive. And sometimes the only way that they could survive was making sure that the non-breeders made sure that and I'm using this term straight out of the book, folks. I'm not using it in any derogatory way. Fred calls them the non-breeders, who help the rest of the clan live. And at some point they had to rely upon them to, for their society to continue to live on. They were they were essential. So it was a neat way for Fred to say, look, okay, you don't have to believe in what you don't have to believe in what they are doing, but they are contributing to society. They're not harming anybody. And so I believe that this particular issue is a great way of showing how intolerant of a species that we can be. The human race is so intolerant in some ways. We strive to be better, but I think we do. I honestly think we do. Mark, I gave you this issue. I'm talking all over it. Why don't you go ahead? And that's pretty much it. They go to a marriage retreat. Kumbaya. Everybody's happy. Adam and Steve show up. And then we realize, okay, well, we're not, we haven't made many great steps anyway in our tolerance. But go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
I like the theme of it. here's the problem. I was much more into the issues that were being discussed in the first couple of issues than I was. I mean, you're talking to somebody who used to do a political podcast here on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network. 10 years, we're still grinding your gears, and and I remember even when it was still like it's not really a hot button anymore. Most states now you can become married to your same gender partner. It was a hot button issue. I was like, between this and picking a new pope, this is a fucking slow news day for me. Or when the one woman who was paralyzed and the husband was trying to kill her and the parents were like, no. And Sean Hannity was like, she needs water. Like, oh, fuck. I just shut up, all of you. Can't we talk about something? Meanwhile, Iran's building a bomb. Could we focus on? Nope. All right. We're back to this stupid story. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't mind that I get that I'm not like in the majority of people that think fucking gay marriage is a big deal, but it's not. I mean, I don't have a problem with people doing it. I think people should absolutely have the right to. But if I were to rank the list of issues facing this country, gay marriage isn't even in like the top 20. The jobless future, that's number one for me. We all know that.
Yep.
Dealing with a jobless economy. Those are the things I think are important. Marriage, not so much. And it's more of I don't understand what the debate's about. Since I think Patton Oswalt kind of summed it up. He was like, if people would just be honest and say that the thought of two gay men having gay sex or two women having gay sex kills my boner, makes me not want to have sex, that would be a debatable point. We'd have to debate you on that. Mm-hmm. But they always tie it to something else, some other higher cause or whatever. And it's like, I don't want to get into any of that, number one. And number two, it's not to me very important. So it's like, it's fine to focus on one issue of a comic book, but for me to talk extensively about it, it's like, I'm bored listening to myself talk about it.
Yeah, I mean,
like I'm not into this subject. But I will say this: it did bring up something that is contemporary, at least for my wife and I. We have friends that are polyamorous. I don't know if you guys know what polyamory is, but basically it's like polygamy. Mm-hmm. It's I'm not going to just marry one person. I'm going to or I'm not going to be involved with just one person. I'm going to be involved with multiple people. So, like for example, we know somebody who is in a polyamorous relationship and they have a kid together, but they date other people. That's okay, and that's polyamory for you.
That is a tough one for me to wrap my head around.
And I said to my mom, like I don't have, in theory, a problem with polyamory. I really don't, because I don't really give a shit what people do. My problem is conceptually, I don't know why you would want to date more than your wife. I can barely handle my wife. Like, I get the idea of you wanting sex somewhere else, but to have a relationship with feelings and emotions and having to take into somebody, oh my God, just saying that now makes me want to crawl under the couch. Yikes. Can't you just go to the sex cave and be done with it? And by that, I mean, get a prostitute. Like, I'm all for that. I'm all for legal prostitution. Get your rocks off, honey. However, but to date more than one person, yuck. So that's how I related to this comic. I was definitely with the people like marriage. Yeah, just go to the sex cave. And I'm not saying marriage is a bad thing. I love my wife and I love my marriage, and that's the whole point, though, is I only want to marry one person. That's really all I've got the patience for.
Yeah.
And I don't get how the polyamory society works. How could you have that much need to be around other people on that kind of a level, on that kind of a human level? Really, you have a need for something more than just sex? Weird. Yuck. So there we go.
I don't understand how the drama could not be, extensively high in situations like that. I really don't. Like, I would be, I could see somebody getting jealous of another pretty easily. I don't.
Yeah.
This is me and me only. I don't, and I hope this doesn't like step on any toes, but I don't care what anybody says. It's there. The drama's there in some form, fashion, way,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's there
Right.
because you're going to end up spending too much time with this other person, or they're going to spend too much time with this other person, and you're going to get jealous. You know why? Because you're human.
Right.
And that's, to me, faith aside, whatever, a lot of people already think they know what I'm going to say, but which some of it's true. But, all this stuff aside, why is it that a person needs they feel like they need this love, emotion, feelings, just everything that Mark said from more than one person? They don't. To me, it's just on a level of, I want this person, I want my cake and eat it too, kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
I know,
that's. Go ahead, Mark.
I know we talked about this like on the Star Wars thing, but I totally go back to, Han, I love you. You are smothering me, and I need my space.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, when I want that closeness, when I want that like togetherness, I have my wife for that. The one wife that I chose and chose me back, and that's fine. And when I don't want that, I don't have to have it necessarily. We can go be our own individual people. And it's like, I guess if we had a polyamorous person on the panel right now, they'd be like, well, you don't understand. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need something from that person that they can't give you, which I totally understand. I absolutely understand that concept of this one person isn't giving you what you need. They may be too caught up with their own career. They're caught up with their own stuff. They're caught up with their own family. The act of having children has changed them in some way, and they're not meeting that. Okay. So you find that stuff in another person. That's how you're handling it. And I guess that's fine for those people. I don't know how you balance it. It's a weird juggling act that I couldn't even begin to wrap my head around. But I do understand that level of it. But as I said, and I guess I need to be specific, for me personally, if I'm not getting some emotional need from my wife met, I'm going to get it met through something else, but it's not going to be through a person necessarily. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to devote I do this, I go run, I go to the gym, I spend time with my kids, like if I feel a distant from my wife, I might try to make up that emotional distance by spending more time with my kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you
and
think
it'll provide a different emotional need for me, but it'll still be something. I guess, as opposed to going and dating another woman, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think that comes from trying to meet those needs, or that supposed need from their partner? These they say they're polyamorous because there's a breakdown in communication. Because to me, if my wife or my girlfriend is not giving me the emotional or whatever, I'm going to go to him and I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about this. This is how I feel. What's the deal? How do you feel about it?
Well, look, you never know who's listening to these things, and I don't want to be insulting.
Right.
So I don't. So I have an idea in my head, and I know I've mentioned this to my wife, but I don't want to just blurt it out here because as many insulting things if I have possibly said on this podcast, some odd reason I'm like, I don't want to offend the polyamory community. Fuck those people. Burn my house down. No, whatever. But I will say this, and I'm going to say this in a very general way and not necessarily in a direct way. Marriage takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of emotional maturity, sacrifice, and there are people out there that are just not willing or able to do any of that.
Right.
And it's more like I could put the work in to get skinny, or I could just, or I could just buy bigger pants. And it's like, I feel like the polyamory people are just into just buying bigger pants.
Buying bigger pants, yeah.
And instead of putting the work in. And again, that's probably sounds terribly insulting for those people. Like, what do you mean we don't put work? Are you cutting me? I have 3 wives. Why I put 3 times as much work in? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and maybe I'm being prejudiced towards monogamy, I guess. But I feel like having to focus solely on one person and really try to work that relationship as best I can is more work than saying, sort of shrugging my shoulders at women and say, well, okay, well, you're not really in a place where my needs are being met. So I'll go and take this other girl at work that I work, this other girl at work that I work with. The show is 8:30 and the show is both 8:30 and 30 past 8. Sorry, it's a joke from earlier.
The 15th of May and May the 15th.
Laugh it up.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna sit there and be like, okay, well, so my wife's not really there for me right now, so I'll just go take this girl that I work with. And this girl that I work with, oh, this isn't really working out, so I'm gonna go do this other thing over here. It's like, I said it before, I'll say it again. I don't know how people do that. I know they do. I know it's a big thing, but I would rather just go to the sex cave.
What I like about what Mark Russell did here is that he provided us an insight on, what would have, or at least a thought, a little grain of sand in our minds, like what would it have been like when marriage was introduced to the people? Sure. It had to have been like, what the hell are you doing, man? Why would you do this? And
sociologically speaking, what the purpose of marriage was to civilize men. It was to keep them close to the home.
Okay.
The whole idea behind the whole idea behind marriage as an institution is so that there would be men to protect the women and children in the home. Marriage is. There is a point to be made about marriage. It's supposed to be for the breeding of children and the continuation of the species. And we build up a lot of pomp and circumstance and culture around that. But that's ultimately sociologically what that's all supposed to be for. And the idea is that man is a roamer, man is a hunter, and man, and like any man, genetically you want to spread your seed as far and wide as you can, but in order for society to prosper, you still have to make sure that these children are cared for, and women aren't going to be able to care for them as good as men can.
Okay.
In the sense that there are predators out there.
Yeah.
So you want to keep the men around, and so this sort of the social construct of marriage is created to keep men close to the home, and it goes against our psychological grain.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot why eons and eons later, society has such a problem, with marriages staying intact, because it does go against a very deep embedded nature. So it's funny to look at that in the comic book because he's right on. Why don't you just go to the sex cave? I love that line, like a normal person.
You think?
What is this? What is this marriage? What are you doing? This is not the way society is meant to be, and there's a point to be made about that. But unlike the point we were talking about before with polyamory, they don't get into the deep relationship stuff. They're just saying, hey, if you have a physical need, go get it met. Go to the sex cave, get it done, go home again. Let's stop making mountains out of molehills with all this stuff. And it's a funny thing to look at, but to me, that's interesting.
I'm just reading a sign here on this cover. A child deserves several fathers and about a dozen mothers.
Yeah, it takes a village to raise a child badly.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Oh, wow. Ronnie, did you have any other insight or anything else you'd like to say about this issue before we get into our final thoughts?
So much, but it's not that kind of podcast. I have a whole set of different beliefs and views than this gentleman that wrote
Mark Russell.
Mark Russell. And
I thought you were talking about Mark Bradledge.
no,
This
no,
person I will not name on this podcast right now.
no. Mark, you and I, we agree more than we disagree, I think, on a lot of different subjects. But I just think he takes a really flippant view at things, and is very. I'm choosing my words wisely, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. For those who don't agree with him, it started lightly, not so lightly in issue 1, and just kept escalating. I just feel like I'm right, you're wrong, you're stupid because you don't agree with me.
I don't honestly think he is being that overbearing with this comic.
Maybe I'm a little sensitive to that, but
Well, he's a Hollywood liberal. I bet you he is. Haha.
Yeah. But I'm very conservative in certain views, and all the views I have, really. That doesn't mean I don't think anybody has any less, that anybody's worth any less than I am. That's not it at all. I think everybody has all the worth in the world, and and I love indiscriminately. Everyone that's around me, I try to find the good in them, and love who they are.
Sure.
Even though I may not agree with them, I just don't feel that from the commentary that he's displaying in these books.
Are you finding that this is a very cynical book?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's very, very cynical, and I think that once again, if you don't agree with his views, I think that he's poking fun at you. I felt that way in the religion issue. I felt that way with several different issues that came about that I'm a Christian. I believe in God. And then when he holds up with a blank sheet of paper, says there is nothing. It's kind of a punch in the chest, man. It's kind of like
his. I understand.
You just called me an idiot for believing the way I believe.
That I don't think he's being that overt about it. I think what he's trying to do is show anybody that, hey, you can't. It's tough. It is tough to go and blindly believe in a God that you can't see, touch, hear, smell, whatever.
Right.
And I don't think he's calling you stupid for doing that. What I think he's doing is showing everybody, hey, this could possibly be what happened. It could very well easily be somebody saying, all right, you're going to believe this is who you're going to believe in now. Oh, we can't show you who he is.
But the thing about it is everybody that he has shown with any sort of belief system, they believed in a pink elephant. They believed in a blank sheet of paper. They believed in Morp, it was Morp, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That they couldn't see. And they were all kind of dopey for doing it.
Well, we're not dopes. I think that you can believe in what you believe in and still question. You're still allowed to question what.
When I was a youth minister, I always taught my kids, it is by all means have questions.
Yeah. You
need to ask questions to learn.
Yep.
The Reagan approach to religion: trust but verify.
Right, exactly. And me personally, I live my life with I ask why. I ask why does it have to be this way? Why is it this way? What's going on? Otherwise I don't. It's a very ignorant point of view. If I don't know why I believe, I just believe. Mm-hmm. And I live my life by the my motto, I guess you could say, is ask why, but don't ask who. You know what I mean? Don't question why, but don't question who. Okay. And that's the way I believe. I don't question who God is, but I question why there are certain things that have happened. And more often than not, through studying, through everything else, I find my answer. And I would say, all the time, not all the time. There are still things that I question. There are still questions that I have. But I'm also saying, if someone doesn't believe the way I believe, I'm not going to sit here and call them stupid. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm not going to sit here and make fun of them. I want to share my beliefs with you. I want to see if you will, if you're open to them. And I guess what I'm asking is for the same respect out of somebody who doesn't have the same beliefs as me. And I'm really not finding that in these books.
I hear you.
And it's really, really odd to say that about a book called The Frickin' Flintstones.
I promise this is the last thing I'll say, and then we're going to move on. But another way that you could look at what he's saying here, specifically in that issue that you mentioned, where they were talking about, coming up with nothing there to represent their God. He could be saying everybody has a right to their beliefs. Clearly, it's not going to be easy to show who God is or give you something physical to show what or who God is. But he is clearly showing you how men can take the representation of God and
monetize it.
Yes, warp it to their own specific needs.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That, I think, is what comes across more to me. The fact that we put more trust in men giving us the gospel than we would actually put trust in ourselves. And that fit all in with that crap episode. Again, we're putting crap issue. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, the thing about it is I kind of saw where he was going with the, we found out what the pink elephant was. It's a dishwasher. Oh, hey, as a society, we worship our belongings. We worship, what we can buy and what we have in our lives. I get that. And then all of a sudden, I was actually trying to see past, I've been on the defensive lately too, with a lot of different people and a lot of different discussions I've had. So maybe that plays a lot into how I read this book. So if it does, I don't, I apologize, but it rubbed me the wrong way because, I agree totally with the fact that man has corrupted the gospel, has corrupted any kind of faith, because that's who we are. We're men, we're corruptible ourselves, and I've always said, going back to when I could, when I formed my own thoughts on things was, religion itself is corruptible, but Jesus Christ is incorruptible. So that's how I, follow up my faith and what I believe in that. So it was kind of a hard pill for me to swallow on that, but I get it, and he's completely entitled to his beliefs. I just wish he hadn't done it with the Flintstones.
What else would you do it with?
Make up your own characters.
It wouldn't be nearly as resonant.
I know. I'm just being bitter now.
All right, let's get into our final thoughts so we can go to bed. Mark Radulich, what are your final thoughts on Flintstones 1 through 4?
I mean, I enjoyed it. It's funny to have this conversation now because I remember reading it and thinking, what are you two nerds on about? Why?
What is the big deal?
Yeah, what is the big deal? Because I remember Jesse's like, you have to read this. And I'm like, Wilma's going to be a whore. Fred's big hulking cock just hanging out of his long
I would not recommend anyone read that.
That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I'm recommending to read porn.
I know, right? What kind of comic books do you read, Radulich?
The way you guys were acting. Like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And I'm like, all right, let's dig into some terrible. Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Social commentary. Hey, where's the big hulking cock hanging out of a loincloth? Why isn't Wilma taking her top off? What's going on here? So yeah, I don't know. I didn't understand at the time what the big deal was.
Right.
And so that's actually why I think I insisted that we do this, because I'm like, I gotta know, why did you guys make me read this? What did you think I was going to get out of it? I mean, I thought it was a good book. I enjoyed the story. I like the little parables about, and the social commentaries about modern times. But ultimately, like, I was done. I deleted it from my phone, and that was it. I moved on with my life. So, like, as we've been talking about this for the past 8 hours,
2 hours an issue.
I get where Ronnie's coming from. He has a sentimental attachment to the Flintstones. I don't. This is not one of those things where I'm just like, oh, my baby. So I get where you're coming from, and so I get why, like, you didn't like it. I don't get why you thought this was a big deal, though, Jesse. And I think I need, before this podcast ends, you need to tell me what the fuck you thought I was going to get out of this book, or why you insisted I had to read this. What did you think I was going to think?
He's going to punch you in the face.
I could tell you, I think the hook for me was easily the fact that they were taking Flintstones and using them to do it was totally unexpected to do this book. It was unexpected. What the last Flintstones comic I saw was most likely drawn in some type of animated form, telling goofy stories, something like from Dell or Whitman Comics, something like that. Something that had no bearing. All it was just a funny book. And now all of a sudden we've got a totally different take by using these characters to express real world issues. I was impressed by the concept, and after reading it, I was impressed by the fact that we could sit here for close to 2 hours and discuss all this stuff that went on in these books. Pressing issues, I say pressing, but I mean it's topical issues for sure that face our society today, and plus turn around and make you think about, well, what was it like before these things were instituted, and still adding humor to the book. So the main reason I wanted Mark Radulich to read it was because, as I said in the beginning, I don't think I've discussed anything like this with Mark Radulich before. It's always been superheroes. So I thought, well, it's time to do a change. My goal before the end of the New Year's resolution here, 2017, I want to make you invested into something that you may not have seen coming your way. Whether it be Saga or Why the Last Man or Invincible even.
I think he would really enjoy Why the Last Man. I'm not sure, but
it's a good one. But I was hoping, kind of break the ice just a little bit with the Flintstones, and then I'll keep my eye open, working from there. Mark, other than some of the popular comic book writers, what are the names? I guess let me rephrase this. Can you name some popular comic book writers?
Frank Miller.
Discussed earlier when we were scheduling, by the way.
Popular.
Arthur Miller.
Arthur Miller. I don't know about that one.
Oh, Lord.
Stan Lee.
Okay. Now, see, what I would love to do is that by the end of 2017, hear Mark Radulich go, I can't get enough of so-and-so.
Brian Michael Bendis.
Oh, B&B. There you go. Some B&B, or maybe a little bit of
Straczynski, or even Mark Waid,
Jason Aaron, the God Bomb stuff. Yeah. I would love for you to be like, okay, I've got to seek more of these books out, because
I'll name one that I'm interested in.
Okay.
Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns.
Okay. Yeah.
I actually just added to I just added to my wish list Blackest Night.
Oh, yeah. Have you never read that, or have you?
No, I've never read any of the Green Lanterns.
Oh, dude.
Man, you're going to love
Blackest Night's great.
And I know Sean Comer gave me an entire reading list of the Jeff Johns Green Lantern series. So I've got, I think, I'll look at my Kindle again. But I bought 2 of them on my Kindle, and again, the print was too small, so I never finished them. But at some point, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish these, and then I'm going to get Blackest Night. I have Green Lantern Volume 1, No Fear. which was giving me a bit of a headache, and I have Rebirth.
Oh, Rebirth.
Yeah, I heard that one's really good
So
too.
good. Yeah.
Blackest Night, man. Nightmares. I'm kidding you not, Mark Radlich. I had nightmares of Blackest Night. I'm a grown man. I read that book and it gave me nightmares. So I think that's like the 5th time I've said that on this podcast too.
Craig Mark, well, I'm not reading that.
Mark, I know you're not the big horror fan when it comes to movies. Clearly, I imagine you know the plot behind Blackest Night involves zombies.
Yes.
So be prepared.
I know that now because I bought those rings from me and my kids.
I saw that.
And I had to explain, and I had to figure out, like, because my son was like, what's the black ring do? So I had to look it up, and I'm like, oh, it means you're a zombie. And he was like, yes.
Awesome. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been our coverage of the Flintstones 1 through 4. I hope you've all enjoyed listening to our social commentary on the social commentary that was presented to us tonight. Let's go ahead. We'll get into plugs.
Thank you for joining us on polyamory tonight. Next week.
It's just so yeah.
Oh,
I want to continue that conversation.
Next week on our show, how many husbands can you take on a vacation? Go ahead.
Man. Ronnie Adams, let's go ahead. We'll get into plugs, man. What do you want to plug, sir?
Well, we have a show called Screaming Boy Podcast where we talk about anything nerd related, nerd culture, nerd, it's just a nerdy podcast. We've talked Star Wars, Indiana Jones, we talked tech, a little bit of music, comic books, the whole nine. We talk about it. Hopefully soon we'll have sports on there too, because yes, you can be a nerd about sports. This you can.
Sorry, I'm laughing at something else.
Oh, okay.
Man arrested at Disney urinates on cop.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys hear about the guy up here that was? My wife put it relieving himself. He wasn't relieving himself. He was ejaculating into a syringe and then going into parking lots and then squirting it onto people and stores and stuff.
Oh.
Did they shoot him?
He is still alive, sir.
Oh,
he is caught, though. Thank goodness. But apparently that went national, so I figured you guys may have heard it. But
that's terrible.
Remember when I said I try to love indiscriminately? So anyway, this past show we did a kind of a year-end review of just a New Year show. We looked at some of the stars that have passed passed away this year, because we had a lot of pop culture icons pass away this year, and Prince and Carrie Fisher and Kenny Baker and Glenn Frey and a few others. Muhammad Ali, George Michael. So we had a lot of those pop culture icons pass away. So we took a look at them. But to end the year on a positive note, we also took the top 5 Reddit stories and tore them apart.
It's fun stuff.
It was so much fun. It was a great show. Right now you can catch that on YouTube with all the wonderful visuals that Jesse Starcher provided for us. And it will be releasing on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and right here on the Radio Legend Broadcasting Network very soon. You can find us on Screaming Boy PR on Twitter, Screaming Boy Productions on Instagram. Just look up Screaming Boy Podcast on Instagram. And you can look for us on Facebook, Screaming Boy Podcast. And that's it.
All right. Mark Radlich.
All right. Here are my plugs from now until December.
God have mercy.
Louise.
Just kidding.
Yabba dabba do.
Yeah.
All right. So if you've deigned to listen to this show on the actual night that it's supposed to be airing here on the Radio Legend Broadcasting Network, it is Monday, January 9th. But it isn't. Tomorrow night on the Radio Legend Broadcasting Network, Jesse, who can't get enough of me, is going to be on the first actual inaugural TV party tonight, complete with theme music. We'll be looking at Black Mirror Season 1. It's the 3 episodes, the national anthem, Guy on a Bike, and the third one. So we'll be looking at those, and I'll have to ask Jesse once again, why did you make me watch this shit?
Wrong podcast.
Metal Hammer of Doom starts Wednesday, 2017. MHOD Clutch Deep Cuts, B-sides and covers. Money. Yep, we're waiting on. I got 4 songs. Jesse's picking 4 songs, and Coop now has to pick 4 songs from a list that me and Jesse gave him. So that's our playlist that we're putting together for that show. I'm very excited about it. So we'll see what happens there. And then on Thursday, we are debuting a new show here on the network. Long Road to Ruin is Dead. Long Live On Trial. On Trial, ladies and gentlemen. It is a movie where it is a podcast rather where we will take a movie and one of us, either myself or Sean Comer, will prosecute the movie and the other one will attempt to defend it. In some cases, we're picking the movie that, and the side that we're on. In other cases, we'll just kind of flip a coin and figure it out. I'm picking a lot of movies this year related to movies that we'll be reviewing on Damn You Hollywood later on. Some ones that I've selected that I feel that I can defend here at the law firm of Radulich, and Jew. Superman Returns, Catwoman, and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
No.
The King Arthur from I think 2014 or whatever year it was. So I picked some real terrible ones.
Jeez.
And but I'm going to march forward and I'm going to defend this shit. But the first one that I'm actually doing will be on the 26th. That's going to be my choice, and it's going to be Inception. And it's not because I have a personal opinion about it. It's actually because I've never seen it before. So it's another podcast, where I'll hopefully be able to watch some movies outside of my usual Michael Bay, boom, bang, or superhero type movies. Real quick, next week, I'm going to have a coworker, a person that I work with, that'll come on.
What is today again? January 5th or the 5th of January?
Yeah, it'll be January 7th or the 17th of January, whichever comes first. It'll be a TV party tonight. We'll be looking at the 4-part series on Netflix by Michael Pollan, the author of The Omnivore's Dilemma. We're looking at Cooked. It'll be the first time she'll be on the network. It'll be the first time she might actually ever have done any podcasting. So I'm bringing on a virgin to sacrifice to all you viewers, listeners. No, just kidding. Not really. But no, I am bringing somebody who's never podcasted on before. It'll be a fun experience, I think, and we're going to talk a cooking show. So something really out of the realm of weirdness here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. MHOD will be reviewing the new Sepultura, and then another new show will be debuting that Thursday, the 19th, because Name Made Me. And in this case, it'll be because Gavin made me. And Gavin made me watch There Will Be Blood, so we're going to review it together. And that's all I got for now.
All right. Well, source material has 2 things. All right. The first of which is January 23rd. We're going to get together a ton of mini interviews and our What You're Reading special for the first quarter of 2017 will air. You guys get to hear some of the past guests and maybe some new guests talk about what's on their pull list and what they've been reading and some of the stuff maybe they've decided to let go by the wayside. So that'll be a lot of fun.
I'll give you a preview. I'm going to talk about Moon Knight Lunatic.
Ooh, I can't wait. Can't wait. So that's going to be, that's a book I haven't read, so I can't wait to hear your opinion on it.
Yep, it's about a mental health professional reads a book about a schizophrenic superhero. Should be great.
Oh yeah, right up Mark's alley. So, number 2, I want to end the podcast like this.